All right. Well, we are extremely excited to welcome our guests today, Ashley Cole and her mom, Vicki Neeleman. Thank you both for joining us here at Snow College. So, shoes and accessories designer Ashley Cole had a passion for business and fashion at a very young age. She was fortunate to be surrounded by an entrepreneurial family. Her father, David Neeleman, and her mother, who I'm sure is just as much a part of this entrepreneurial team and family, founded JetBlue Airways and Azul Brazilian Airlines, and now Breeze Airways, right? I think this is number 4 for you guys, if I'm counting. Oh, WestJet, okay, Morris Travel, I don't know. You lose count after like 3 airlines, I guess. Ashley created Cecilia New York in 2015. She named the company after her daughter, Cecilia. Her designs incorporate style and comfort with the highest quality of materials and craftsmanship. Her designer shoes use Italian leathers and a range of authentic and luxurious materials. After graduating from the Fashion Institute of Technology with a bachelor's in fashion merchandising, she worked for Giorgio Armani, Diane von Furstenberg, and JetBlue Airways. While at JetBlue, Ashley pioneered the effort to brand the airline as a fashion-forward company. Ashley lives in Holiday, Utah with her husband, Matthew, her 2 sons, Samuel and Eli, and her daughters, Cecilia, Naomi, Genevieve, and Vivienne. So please welcome Ashley Cole.
Thanks for having me. You guys are so nice. I'm really honored to be here, and thanks Russ for reaching out. He can attest that I'm kind of crazy, all over the place person trying to keep my 6 kids and work. And I feel like this year I have really encountered a whole new level of crazy because my son entered high school. So now I have a 2-year-old and a high schooler, and trying to juggle those 2 worlds and my work has just been a new challenge for me. So I'm going to go through a little bit of my history and kind of how I got to the point where, you know, I love the crazy and the chaos, and then we'll go through some of the things that I've learned. So I was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, the oldest of 9 kids. So everything was really busy and fun at our house. I love to listen to my father, I had aunts and uncles and grandparents that all had their businesses. My great-grandpa, one of my dad's parents, had the first convenience store in Utah, and they were always trying to, what they would call, build a better mousetrap. And I was so interested in this, and I loved to listen to it. And my little thing in elementary, I would build a lemonade stand out front, and I'd say, okay, now, this isn't my thing to sit on the street with you guys. Now, you all look cute and wave your signs, and I'm gonna go upstairs in the office. And I'd set myself up a little office with my nightstand, and I'd have like the old school phone there and a notebook to everyone I'd called and our church directory, and I'd call every single person and let them know how amazing this lemonade was. And then I would get round to my siblings and I would send them to all the houses, and they'd bang on the door till someone come out, and there was no option. You had to come and get our lemonade, and I just really enjoyed these experiences. But when my dad told our family, the summer before my senior year of high school, he was going to start an airline in New York City, I was no longer interested in what he was doing. I was very unhappy, to say the least, and I was gonna go kicking and screaming all the way to New York. So to make that blow a little less, he is an amazing salesman, and he talked my best friend's parents into letting her move with us. She would listen to him trying to convince me, oh, you'll love New York, we'll go see these shows, we'll travel the Northeast, and I just was like, I'm not having it. And then he convinced my mom on the other side to take on a 10th child. So off we go to New York, and I was giving him all the problems he could possibly deal with. And I got there, and I was completely taken by it. I'd never been to the Northeast. I don't think I had ever been, west of or east of Texas. This was just like this world to me and to my family. My dad was known as the guy from Utah that fell off the turnip truck in New York trying to start an airline. And it just spoke so strong to me, and just the energy and the vibe and the people, and it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I still remember the first time I got out of a train in Grand Central Station and followed my very adventurous, she had to be like 14-year-old sister up Fifth Avenue to my dad's office, and I could not like keep my mouth closed. I was just in awe of every single thing around me. So I loved it so much. Me and my friend, we got a job in Grand Central Station at Michael Jordan Steakhouse, and we would get on the Metro North train after school in New Canaan, Connecticut, and take the train in. And we would be hostesses in this restaurant. I just could not get enough of New York City, and I loved it so much. But I still had some FOMO, and I wanted to have my college life how I had always planned with my friends, and we were going to live together, and this was all the way it was going to be. So we decided, all my tight group of friends, to go to what was UVSC, UVU now. And I come back, and I'm literally there for 2 months, and I'm just going, wait a minute. And I started applying for the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. And they took a long time in that application process. And I finally, at the very end of the year, in like April, I got word like, okay, I'm going to New York, I'm going. And it was the day after my freshman year. I was on a plane, and I was back in New York. And the first thing I did, I get off, and I get a job at JetBlue, and everything was so new. It was like less than a year old, and there was so much excitement and so much fun, and I got to be on the promotions marketing team. And they said, we're going to let you do whatever you want with a big budget of airline tickets. You get no money to barter your way into anything to make us a fashion-forward airline you can. Now, they had these really cool, like, in-flight outfits that were designed by Stan Herman, who was the current president of the CFDA, which is the Certified Fashion Designers of America. It's like a really big, it's a big organization. They have the big CFDA awards every year. So that kind of helped open some doors. But I got to do these amazing fashion events with Michael Kors and charities he was doing, and runways in New York. I got in-flight, and even the baggage handler outfits, these like cool bomber jackets they had, would walk the runways, and we would come on the mic as if we were on an airplane, and welcome to this JetBlue flight. Now there's who has tickets under their seat? And it was such a fun way. Just, I was young, I was just fearless and just ask for anything. And I couldn't believe how many people said yes, and really got to play with fashion and get into New York. So when I started school, I absolutely loved it. I ate up the Fashion Institute of Technology. It's a really cool place because most of the teachers are also in the field, and I loved hearing about the current situation of the buyer. She did Macy's and Bloomingdale's. It was one company, and how she would tell about her day and then come and teach us about it. And I was just loving it so much. I had never done very well in school my whole life. My family, there's a lot of ADD going around in my family, and I had kind of fallen into the pitfalls of, I'm not that smart. I have other things that maybe I'm good at. Maybe I have a lot of energy, and I can work really, really hard, and I can outwork someone. I can do this, but the smarts wasn't handed out to me. And that was just kind of what I always had in my mind. And then when I got to Connecticut, New Canaan, Connecticut, the high school was so much more demanding, and it was just unlike anything I experienced. And it was the first time in my life I had A's, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm engaged and if I'm interested in something, and in our family we call it hyper focus, if you can really just get into something, then I'm actually good. I can do good. I can do this. And that's how it was at FIT also. I just love that if we had an accounting class, it was an executive from Levi's who was teaching the accounting class. And it really helped me. And I always knew I loved business and I love fashion, to merge these two passions and take all these opportunities that they had for us at the school. When school was ending, I first started working for Giorgio Armani in marketing, and that was a really, really fun experience. It's just it was such a cool company. And being in the marketing department I always knew a really good learning experience, but I wanted to try something else. So I got 2 offers. One was to go into the buying program at Bloomingdale's, and that's like a 2-year program. You're basically like assisting someone, and then they start placing you, and you can go anywhere. You can be like, you can be in loungewear, you could be in cosmetics, you could be in housewares, you could be anywhere. It's a huge department store. Then I got another offer to go into sales, ended up being international sales at Diane von Furstenberg. And when I went to meet with Diane, I was so taken by her. She was just this like muse to me, and the way she carried herself. And it was a time when women were not as championed in any industry, but she just like demanded the room, unlike anything I had ever seen. And so I decided to go, and these first experiences, you'll never know how much they will impact you forever. And I just thought, oh, this is so cool, because I'm gonna learn how to see how the designers work, and this is so cool because I'll meet all these like buyers, and I just had no idea. But the biggest thing I took from Diane was, one, the company, she had blown up in the 1970s. She had invented the wrap dress, and she had gotten so big, and she went and sold her name, her license, to anybody and everybody. So in the late 90s, she started going and buying up those licenses, and she was gonna relaunch her company, and it was just starting to really take off. She had just gotten in Saks and Bloomingdale's, and it was growing, but it was still so small. It was this 3-story building in the meatpacking district, which since then, because of her, has become like one of the hottest spots in New York. But it was this 3-story building, and the bottom was the showroom with a retail store. The next floor was where we all worked, when we weren't showing, and then the top floor was her apartment. And the second floor, it was sales, design, production, operations, PR, marketing. We were all basically in this big donut overlooking the showroom, and we could like hear what everyone was doing, and everything was going on. And it was just this awesome buzz and this excitement. And I felt like I had friends in every single department, where some of these really big companies, and probably how it is now since they've moved into a much bigger space, I couldn't just talk to someone about what they were doing, know so much about it, and go right to design when I'm selling something and give some feedback. It was so fun. But even more than that is watching how this woman intertwined her family and her work life. Was just like this resonating thing to me. So I always believed, so when I transferred to FIT, I had to finish my college in 4 years. Like, there is no way I was gonna take more than 4 years, because I had about 4 years, and then I was gonna work as many years as I possibly could, and then when I started having a family, that was it. Like, family first, career, done. Don't even, like, I never even thought twice. That was just the way I was gonna do it. So when I transferred to FIT, I had lost almost a whole year of school. So I would get permission every single semester to take 21.5 credit hours. I took full summer loads, winter, everything I could, just stack, and work so hard, because I said, oh, I have to run so fast. So when I saw Diane, and she was an older woman, and her children and her grandkids would come running through the office, and they were coloring on the floor next to me. And she was just like, I always saw like more how, men would wear their suits to work, and this is how it was done. And she'd come down in her yoga clothes and meet with us. And then she'd go up and come down in a ball gown for an award show. And just like watching her life just was amazing to me. And she'd like, go up to my kitchen and go grab that paper I left up there. Just the way it was, this whole true lifestyle brand, just completely took me to a whole new level and opened my eyes. But still, I was like on my path, like this is what I do. So about the time my husband and I decided to start having kids, he was, so my husband, by the way, he and I had our first date the night before my family moved to Connecticut. He ditched me for about 6 months while I had a big crush on him, and finally asks me out the night before we move. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna do now? Goodbye. He starts writing me these really darling handwritten notes. Goes on his mission to Australia. Still in the time you write handwritten letters. So we wrote handwritten letters and long distance for like 4 years before we got married. But we're finally ready to get married. He's like, okay. So he's playing football at the University of Utah. All right, how are we gonna make this work? I'm like, I'm not leaving New York again. So he packed up and he transferred to Fordham University, which is at Lincoln Center in Manhattan and in the Bronx. And the Bronx is where he played football, which was such a fun experience. But when we were gonna go and I started our family and we moved to Connecticut because he was running athletic training centers out in Connecticut. He had one at Chelsea Piers in New York, and then he had Long Island and Connecticut, New York. We have our first baby. I'm 27 years old. My baby's like a year old, and then it's like, oh shoot, I'm not done. Like I'm like, my brain is just not gonna do this. And I knew at that moment, it's like, if I don't channel my ADD, like chaotic energy into something, then I'm gonna be throwing really big, obnoxious parties, and I'm gonna be flipping houses and probably know nothing about, and it's like something's gonna be going at all times, and I need a channel into something, or else I'm gonna be doing things no matter what. And I just started researching like crazy. I honestly was really, I knew I loved fashion, but as I worked more, I had a business degree in fashion merchandise management. I had taken a lot of electives in design, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And like, to be totally transparent and honest with you, it came down to shoes for me, because I love shoes, but also because of my beliefs, I didn't want to deal with clothes. Like, I did not want to have to worry about, I didn't want to be the next shabby apple. I just wanted to do something that I could just have all the liberty and all the freedom in the world. And there were no requirements on shoes, at least for me. So I started researching. I started traveling the world. We went to Brazil. I'm actually a Brazilian citizen. My dad was born there, while his parents were journalists. His dad was a journalist. So I went down there, and we had a lot of family stuff going on, obviously airline, things like that. So I started studying in factories and ripping shoes apart, and just like, I wanted to know every single thing about footwear I could. And it took me a few years. And the first business I started, it was called Sasha Fabiani. Sasha came from a factory in China called Sasha Fabiani. The factory agreed to take me on, and I would design, and it would also go into, my designs would go into all their retail stores in Russia, and they would do my small quantities. Okay, so I get back to the States. We had agreed on this name. My friend at the time was my business partner, and her husband's company is Lovesac. I don't know if you guys have seen how Lovesac's turned around, and they just went public a year or two ago. Amazing connections he had in China. So he had a friend who knew someone in footwear. So anyway, by the time I get back to the States and I start doing my little business stuff, like, got to get my trademark. They had filed for my trademark in the United States. And I called them, like, what are you doing? And they said, we will give you back your trademark when your units get big enough. So I played with that for like a couple of years, and I said, forget it, I'm not building a brand. I don't even own the trademark. So by then I had 2 boys, and I was convinced, after having 7 girls in my family, I was actually going to be a boy mom. And that was the way it was going to be, and I had to just get on board with being a boy mom. And then I just get about starting this company. I'm 9 months pregnant, and I have this darling little girl, name her Cecilia. So I'm like, this is what I'm going to name my company, and I'm relaunching this shoe company, and I'm going to call it Cecilia New York. So I'm not like methodical. I haven't had a lot of time raising all my kids and doing my work. A lot of times I joke around, like, my head is like in the sand, and I am cranking, like trying to make things happen any window of the time I get. If it's 11 o'clock at night, if it's nap time, if it's early in the morning, if I have 5 kids in school now. So I've had a lot of help at times, but my baby is, going to grow up. So I've tried to really like keep a balance of all things. But it's like, I don't have time to sit there and kind of have these really beautiful quotes or anything for you. So I'm just going to tell you what I've learned, and I hope you can take something from it. So this is what I thought it looks like, and a lot of people think what success looks like. This is what it's like for 99.9% of us. There's a lot of hard times. There's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not, how did this happen? And then you throw COVID onto it, and that's just a whole new level of like, there should be 10 more loops of that for trying to manufacture overseas and sell to retail during COVID. But I'm a big believer, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So, going back to DVF, and never thought I would do a career after I started having kids. Whenever I hear the words work-life balance, I honestly just start like chuckling inside. Like, what is that? And how can we have a work-life balance? It's a constant list of priorities, and it's a constant decision every single day on where you're gonna spend your time. And I used to do all the overseas travel. I used to go to every trade show, and my kids were little, but I didn't have any money to pay anyone to do that stuff. Like, I didn't even take a salary. My poor husband had to pull like all the way and pay for babysitters, and I was gone doing the things I had to do, because when I could not pay someone to do the job and I'm glad I needed to do it. So it's constantly changing. And like I said, I have a son in high school now, and I thought, oh my gosh, I had this eye on the world going, as soon as my baby is like 2.5, or like the past 10 years, as soon as my last kid is 2.5, who knows how many it's gonna be, it's gonna be 6. How many I am gonna start running 100 miles an hour. I'm gonna crank this is gonna go to the next level. I'm gonna be a household name. And then all of a sudden I look to my son who's 15. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not missing this. He's gonna be gone in 3.5 years, and I'm just gonna have to save that running for a little longer. There's more time. So, your kids, different kids need different things at different ages, your spouse, your friends. So, sometimes things are actually going kind of smooth at home. That's when as a mother and a woman, I crank it up. And then I gotta watch, and I gotta just continue to keep this balance every day. But before you go and you decide, I wanna be an entrepreneur, I wanna start a business, you have to look yourself in the mirror and in the face, and you have to say, for me, it was like my friends did bachelor nights every week. I had this really fun dinner club. I had cut, all those things were crossed off my list. And that was just good. That was good for me. I said, you know what? This is more important to me, and I will find other ways to keep up with my friends. I'll send them nice texts. I'll be there on their birthday. Really important things, I'll be there. But you have to be okay. So my amazing business partner, Tiffany, she came to me one day after, I think she was with me 2 years, and she just said, I love you, but you are crazy, and I cannot live like this. And I don't want to ruin our friendship, so I'm just going to tell you I'm out. And Tiffany was in it for different reasons than me. She thought it sounded fun. She kind of saw like all the fun parts of it. But when it came down to the grind and trying to balance all this, she just thought she's crazy. And I moped around like my high school boyfriend dumped me or something for like a week. Like, I can't believe it. She doesn't want to do this with me. And then I'm just like so grateful for her, because she could see my craziness and how that would not work for both of us. And it's you have to like be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I willing to give up? Because you will have to give things up that you love if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be successful. Make sure your family is behind you. If that's your mom, your dad, your spouse, your partner, your brothers, sisters, like you need some family behind you. And my family, oh my gosh, my mom is just like my biggest supporter, like literally my biggest supporter. When I'm just like, oh, this is just like crazy. Like what is this like mess now I'm into with this store and this and this? She's like, oh my gosh, look at all this other stuff you have. Look at all this. It's going, oh, it's great. And everyone loves your shoes. And like, you need those people. You need them. So make sure you have someone when you get like things get really crappy, that can talk you out of it, because that self-doubt talk isn't just hard on you, it's hard on your business and it's hard on your team. I wanted it all. That's why my family's up here. I never knew how many kids I wanted, because there was always this pressure, like, oh, you got married. I was like 21 in like 1 month when I got married, and I'm the oldest of 9, and there's always this like, how many kids you can have? And I always just would say, I have no idea. I'm not gonna think, I'm not gonna put a number on it. But just, for me, the more I had, the more I was like, I know I want a big family, but I wasn't willing to say I want this or that. I wanted it all. And I don't have it all. I have friends that started companies at the exact same time that I did, that I look at them and I'm like, holy cow, they're huge. They are so big. They've got like all retail stores in all these malls, and they, they've raised so much money, and I have never felt comfortable raising like peak type money with my family because I know what that would mean for my family's sacrifice. But you know what? This is my all. This is my all. It's my husband and my kids and my business. And I would not change it or do it any other way for me. So these are some pictures. I try to really bring my two worlds together. This is my Vivian, my baby. Anytime. So it wasn't this way when we were out in New York, but now, for the time being, we'll see. We're looking at some changes right now. My studio is the lower level of my house. I still have people in the New York area that they have a different work setup, but I have it's a pretty big space. So we do photo shoots there. We do a lot of stuff. So anytime we have a model come, and the whole thing is she comes out and she starts posing. So I let her. We take some pictures. We have a lot of fittings. We have a fit model come and she tries it on, and I go over and over, like, walk this way, turn this way. Oh, I hear a squeak. And Vivian always thinks she has to turn it on. She has to put it on too and walk around. And it's just like this. It's like any time they can be there, unless I'm like on the call with Nordstrom, I let it happen. It's like if we're not having a serious conversation, because there is a lot in fashion. We're throwing samples around. We're like digging through boxes. There's a lot of that. Sure, come in, color the boxes, try the shoes on, come be part of this with me. Like this day in the middle, I had this really big meeting in the city, and this is my daughter, Gigi. I felt like I just hadn't been with her as much. I just hadn't been there. And I had a live-in nanny at the time, and it's hard when you have a live-in nanny because you have to be careful not to, how many hours go by in the day, So I said, oh, I've just missed her so much. So I put her in the car and my nanny in the car, and I carried her all the way up. And this is the new big, I don't know if you've seen it, the big mall over on the Hudson River. But I carried her all the way till I walked in the meeting, and I played with her and everything, and I handed her to the nanny and said, okay, meet me right here in an hour and a half. And then we went and did something fun in the city afterwards. So these pictures are, I launched a kids line a couple years ago. Our best-selling shoe, which is the hibiscus, it's a big flower that has wire right behind it so you can manipulate the flower. So I did it in kid sizes to bring all my girls, and I let them design the colors, and they were my fit models, and we did a lot of fun photo shoots with them. That was one way I could share this journey with them. And I'm also trying to teach my kids. I learned a lot at the dinner table growing up, and I appreciate those, like just that mentality. So I try to just, talk about my ads and my ROAS and make these conversations. I mean, totally truthful. I look at my kids sometimes and I'm like, I'm sorry, your dad is ADHD. My husband is crazy. Like he gets kicked out of the Little League football games he's coaching. Like he's so intense and so much fun. And I'm ADD. Like my kids, I got to teach them some of these things because they're probably going to have to figure some stuff out on their own, like we've had to. When you're an entrepreneur, we always say when we're interviewing someone, you have to be ready to take out the trash. Are you going to take out the trash with us? You have to do everything and everything. I've filled orders for big department stores in my garage to make the deadline, filled up a U-Haul and driven it to Pennsylvania to their DC. And there's so much tedious work doing manual inventory in the beginning. I look at things I used to do and I'm just like, oh my gosh, no wonder I was working like so many crazy hours. Like I'm still working crazy hours, but I couldn't sleep because of all these things. If you're doing business, like I work with China and Brazil mostly, you're working all in the night. Don't expect anything to be glamorous for a long time, and find good people that can take out the trash with you in those early stages. There's no picture for this because I'm not going to picture anyone, but I wish someone had told me there are people in your life that aren't going to enjoy your success. And it's sad to say, but I've lost some friends. I lost things when it's like almost when I have like some big event that looks so fun and exciting and glamorous, but it's just like a lot of work. And I'm actually watching the sales needle behind the scenes the whole time. All of a sudden, like some close friends don't feel as like, they just don't feel like they want to be around me as much. So, be ready for that and just know that some people, they don't love seeing success. They actually like, oh, that didn't work out, like with a smile on your face. And you're like, yeah, that was tough, but I figured it out. But they don't understand what you've gone through, and you do. So you can feel confident in what you've done and what you are accomplishing. I say this to my team all the time. Go on all cylinders. Are we on all cylinders? If something's not working, if something in our sales channel is not working, if our returns are too high, what's going on? We're not on all cylinders. And the cylinders I talk about is like, number one is our product on point. And that's a whole process of getting the product on point. I talked about the fitting, the sourcing, the shipping, the quality, everything. How's our social media? Is our content? I'll talk about content more in a second. Our ads, influencer strategy, our customer service, events, packaging, branding, and these are all things I have not reached 100% success rate at all, but we know what it means to be on all cylinders. Like, have we kind of forgotten about something? Has something kind of gone to the wayside? And when you go on all cylinders and you really start to hum and you see those needles start to, the dial move. These are things we do for marketing. If you're a consumer brand, these are a lot of the things. And I was so hyper-focused on the product for so long. And one way I got going with factories is I did private label. I became mostly, it was a Barney's brand. Barney's New York since is gone, has changed and lost a lot of money when they went out of business, so be careful of that stuff. But I was doing private label and I went and met with Birdie's in San Francisco. And I don't know if you know, but Birdie's, Rothy's, and Allbirds are all within like a 6-block radius or something in San Francisco. And I was at Birdie's and they were talking about Rothy's and Allbirds. And they said, so like they bring companies like me in to actually do their product. And they were talking about how Rothy's has such a bigger marketing department than they do. And I look over and they've got like 3 people in product and I'm like, what? And she looks at me, she goes, this is just a marketing game. Like that's what this is. And I had always, and I am still, been so hyper-focused on the product that I didn't focus as much on the marketing. But you have to have both in my world, because if you're just a marketing company, then the longevity is not there either. You have to have both. But the marketing, right now, my biggest marketing influencer strategy, I don't pay any influencers yet, but I try to get really creative to get them to post for me for free. Events, always, when we have an event in a month, we have, we call them, oh my gosh, a thunderclap, where we have a whole bunch of influencers, we gift and post at the same thing at the same time. That's when we start seeing things move. Collaborations, working on some collaborations right now with other brands. Trade shows, maximize your reviews, use those in your advertising. Digital ads are huge right now, and we're part of this new Facebook manager testing program. They're trying to get back to iOS 14, I don't know if you guys know, iOS 14 changed everything, so you no longer can use like the lookalike and track people online. We weren't tracking it, but Facebook was doing it for us. And now we're part of this test program. It's going pretty well to see. I want to see things that I actually want to shop for too. So I'm excited about that. Content is king. Like, I've met with executives at Facebook after all the iOS changes, and they just said the only thing we can tell you is your content. Content is everything right now. I always say, like, what is our half-second image? When someone is scrolling, what is that half-second image that's going to stop them and make them go? Because how many images do you all see in one day? Like, who's your audience? You need to test. Because you may think, oh, my audience is this really cool girl, and she's in her 20s, and she's, like, super high fashion in New York. And no, those people don't spend $250 on a pair of shoes. So I have to be realistic. And maybe my customer who's a little bit older wants to be her, but I have to know who my audience and who my customer is. Here's my ugly side. This is actually in my family's house. I was living there while we were building our house. And I can't remember off the top of my head. Something got really bad. I think it was when Barney's went out. We lost a lot of money. And I was like, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to pay the bills? So I had all these boxes of samples and random pieces in the warehouse. And I literally started taking pictures. I mean, this is only a couple years ago. Started taking pictures, maybe like 4 years ago, and we had this huge warehouse sale. And we made it. If you are dedicated and you want it bad enough, you will make it. You will find something you have, that's some asset you have to give, and you will make it if you want to. And it's like, you see the toys, my kids were down there, I was shipping them out myself, siphoning, because I didn't want, people weren't living with me at 12 at night or working with me at 12 at night. But this is, especially in this day and age, this is a survival of the fittest game. And after all this craziness happens with COVID and everything, you know, it's a survival of the fittest, and you have to be really, really determined. The middle is messy, but it's also where the magic happens, and this is where you become really, really good at what you do. Problem solving, I don't know if I have time to tell this story, but this is like our best-selling boot. I had so many people who wanted them, stores who wanted them. I couldn't fill with all the shipping from China. So I moved it to our factory in Brazil. Way tight timeline. I pre-sold them, like so many pairs. I pre-sold them while they were being made in the factory. They had made a huge mistake. So this is actually the boot, but this is another version of it. But when you walked, they made the platform wrong that you slipped out of the back heel so bad you could hardly walk in it. I called every shoe repair company. I tested everything. I went down to Brooklyn, New York to all the shoe supply. I tried foam in there. I tried everything. And I had to give back hundreds of thousands of dollars to everybody. And it was so horrible. But I just kept problem solving, kept pushing through. And finally someone on my team looks at me and goes, "You won't stop, will you?" It's like, no, I won't. And you can't be willing to stop. You have to just keep fighting really, really hard. And this shoe was built off of that top shoe. That was my bestseller, and I realized women want a wedge. Wedges weren't cool. Wedges weren't top fashion, but women wanted a wedge. So I built this wedge off it. Since then, my team showed me about 30 brands that have knocked us off. Stole our shoe and made a mold right off of it. And I was almost like, no one wanted to talk to me the other day. I was so mad. I'm like, don't show me any more of those. But it's still like our bestseller. We have a high up to the knee one and a lot of versions. Build on what works for you. Like, you won't know exactly what you're doing until you figure out what, you know, is gonna work for you. This is our flower shoe I talked about we made a kids line out of. I made the shoe first, has the wire behind it. I took it to the show in New York. I was so excited. I had every color. Nobody bought it. Nobody. And it's a really big deal, especially back then, if I'm gonna invest in something and I have no stores behind it with me. So I decided to do it, blew out of it. That was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It has been our top seller ever since. There's a ton of knockoffs of that too, I'm sure you know. And since I'm small enough, they all can pretend that they didn't knock me off, but they did. They don't have wire in the back yet either. Since then I've done boots out of it that sell really well. I have a removable flower on a big combat boot that's doing really well right now. This is the flat version. It's kind of just become iconic to the brand. So something that I could have just said, nobody wants it, and move on. I believed in it, and it became like a big part of my business. 5 minutes, okay, good, there. So I wanna remind you too, to enjoy the process. People always say, what's your favorite part about what you do? What's your favorite part? And I love the whole process. I love it, and I think that came back from when I was at Diamond Furstenberg and watching how the product was created and how it goes through all the channels to get to the end user. And I love that about what I'm doing so much. I love to dig in all the nitty gritty. I love the data. We have some companies that find data for us and we go through and I'm like, wow, like I learned so much about our customer. And sometimes I love design. I love sitting there in the middle of the night and coming up with really cool ideas. But sometimes I'm like, I push it off so much. I'm like, I just gotta get this line done. I gotta get it done. Oh, when's my due date? Okay. It's like, I need to just remind myself, I love this. I love the process. I love designing. I love working with factories. I love the whole thing, but you have to really dig in deep. There are a few things little nuances I don't love, but I know I love the process. And if you can love the process as a whole, I think it's easier to be more passionate and be good at it and figure out what works. So I rushed through some of these things, but I just want to tell you guys, if you are passionate and if this is something you want to do, is go out and be an entrepreneur. If you have the passion, you have the hard work, and if that's something that, excites you and gets you going, you can do it. And you have to go 100 different ways and around a bunch of ways. Like I'm looking at now for the first time raising money, and I am just like, oh my gosh, this is I have some other ways. I've got loans and things, but raising bigger money I'm going to let someone else help me take the company to the next level. And it's a new world for me, but it's like I have to take that same grit and determination through all these different areas. But you can do it, and you women out there, you can be a mother, and you can feel your passion, and you can teach your family. I always joke around and say, look, like my friends, they have a lot of things they do too. They're in tennis leagues. They do a whole lot more maintenance than I do. They take really good care of themselves. Their nails are done. They get massages, some of them. Like, they have a great life. But I think my kids see me just as much, actually, as they see them. So it's all about choices, and it's all about, you know, what is most important to you, and you can do anything you want to do. So thank you so much.
I think we have time for a question or two.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Yeah.
What made you want to go into fashion?
You know, I just always loved picking out outfits. I would lay in my bed when I was little, and I would see what naturally was hanging by each other in the closet, and I would figure out how to make a really cool outfit just out of that. Like, I loved, like, my cousins who would had also 9 kids in their family, and they would only thrift shop, and what we could come up with that, and what I learned from them. I just loved the creativity. I always felt like if you have less, you actually come out a lot cooler than if you can buy anything you want. And I was just always intrigued by that. So yeah, and then a friend of mine recently who I went to high school with, he said, yeah, you were always sketching on like your math notebook. I was like, oh, I was. Yeah, I forgot about that. It was just something I was always drawn to. Yeah.
I think sometimes our society focuses way too much on the labels.
Exactly.
ADHD. And I find it interesting because I have a daughter who's grown, but I never labeled her growing up. And I found a charter school for high school to work for and everything. It was when she was in college and she was just working with a counselor. And he's like, did you know you're ADHD? She's like, yeah. But we always found ways to maximize that. And you've done that beautifully.
I wouldn't change it for anything. I wouldn't take it for anything. I'd change
And I
it.
think it's phenomenal that you are here today, standing where you are, and sharing your experiences and what you have. And it's truly an inspiration.
Thanks so much. I mean, you can't always juggle 10 things in your brain at once if your brain doesn't already do that. So it actually can be a blessing too. Anything. Yeah?
What would be your advice for someone who wants to start like fashion?
You know, I took a class at UVU, and just I found a company in Provo that did clothing. Just anyone you can find, anything you can get some experience off of, I would do it. And one thing though is I wish I had started sooner. I wish I had trusted myself, and I kept thinking I have to have so many years of experience. I need to learn from everybody else. But really, like, you kind of just learn more of anything, you know, you learn on the go. But I would just find it doesn't need to be like crazy fashion. If there's like a t-shirt printing company in town, and learn about sourcing and how they're getting these things, and how they order sizes so that they're not stuck with a bunch of larges at the end of the day and run out of all the extra larges. You know, I would just there's so many nuances and so many people to learn from while you're in school. I would just search out. And people are really cool in Utah, much more than in New York, about teaching people, I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.